And here we are for week number 3 of the Book of Boba Fett big discussion show, and we've got the rolling rosters with a new face and a couple of returning people. So, let's start it off with Chris Phelps, one of our almighty podfathers here at the Comics in Motion feed, who has not yet been on the Book of Boba Fett show. So, Chris, introduce yourself, tell people vaguely what you're kind of involved in. I know you've got about 1 billion podcasts under your belt, so don't say them all because we'll be here all day. We won't have time to talk about Book of Boba Fett. And then just in a couple sentences, say how you've thought so far of episodes 1 and 2 of Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah. So I am not the podfather. I'm just riding on the coattails of David, who is very, very good at organising stuff. As he always says, I'm the guy who jumps out the plane with no parachute. He's the guy who's checking every safety element of the chute and probably won't jump. So no, it's really humble to say that, Mike. No, but it's really nice to be on. I'm a massive Star Wars fan. I'm a bit behind with you guys because the only thing I've got Star Wars is a Darth Vader head right next to me. That's the only thing, and it does light up. That's the best I can do.
All you need.
That's still cool. That's still cool.
Yeah, more than me. More than me.
Oh, sorry. I feel the lightsabers we've got, the hand, the picture behind that, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But no, Comics in Motion, VHS Strikes Back. We do a reality show, me and Dave, good friends for years. We were in a band, and that's where we started podcasting and talking. And I just love talking about different things. And I think the first episode was really slow. And I think, unfortunately, because The Mandalorian was so good, and obviously we have the ending bit, which I constantly watch on YouTube for the reactions of all the big YouTubers for that bit where, spoilers if anyone's not seen it, but the Luke comes in, and then these bits where they do it with the proper Force music and everything, and I get goosebumps. I've sat there hoodie up pretending that I'm not tearing up, watched it with the missus. So so I absolutely love Star Wars, but I'll be genuinely honest, I have been a little bit disappointed in the first 2 episodes, but I know you, Mike, more than anybody, for your knowledge of Star Wars. I've sat there smiling because I think, you know what, Mike's going to tell me what that means when I speak to him. So that's where, for you, I know you're going to love it. Even the 3rd episode, I've got questions, but from your point of view, I know these things you've told me in the past. I'm like, I know Mike's going to put all that together for me. So anyway, thank you for having me on, and nice to meet everyone.
Well, I will clarify as well, because Andy and Ben are also pretty even when it comes to Star Wars knowledge in different ways. My expertise is like strictly canon. I know probably not 80% of everything in canon, but because I've consumed probably 75% of all canon content, really it's just a few books and the odd IDW comics I haven't. I'm quite on it with that. Whereas Ben is like the Legends encyclopedia. Whenever I get into Legends stuff, whenever I'm like, there's a few Legends books I've been getting into with audiobooks and stuff, I go to Ben, I'm like, Shatterpoint, is that good? He's like, it's amazing. Okay. And I like, this one, he's like, that one's all right. I didn't mind it. So Ben is like the legend of Star Wars Legends. And Andy,
I'm happy my word carries across the globe. And over there in Britain, I'm an authority. It's quite a compliment.
And I know that Andy, I think, has got like a general knowledge, probably maybe less Legends than Ben and maybe less canon than me, but probably more Legends than me, I'd probably say. So if we continue with the intros, Ben, same for you again, although I will say with the 3 of you, I mean, Ben, you were on last week's episode, so you don't need to tell people specifically your thoughts on the last episode. We can just skate right over that and try and keep this all nice and tight. And then with Dan and Andy, we heard their thoughts on the first episode, so we can hear their thoughts on the second one, try and cut the fat a little bit. But Ben, please tell people who you are, where they can find you.
Guys, first of all, thanks a lot for having me, Mike. I love talking to you, all of your lovely guests that you have each time. It's nice to hear you guys talk about Star Wars, share different thoughts and opinions. It's a pleasure. It's a common ground where we all come together and share our thoughts. And that was actually the reason I wanted to start my YouTube channel, which is called Star Wars Timeline. Same with the Facebook group. Just wanted to bring a group of friends who don't necessarily always agree, but we all can come down and have a civilized talk about Star Wars. I like this, I don't like that. What's the criticism? What's the fun part? That was the gist of it. That was the idea. As far as the Book of Boba Fett show goes, I taught myself to go into everything with no expectations. Just plain even field and take it episode by episode, see where it takes you. Because even your favorite filmmakers and directors, sometimes, I don't want to use the word disappoint, but creatively don't go where you want them to. Sometimes the quality is there. Sometimes the direction is still high quality, but doesn't go where you want the show or movie to go. So it's the best way to go is try it. I enjoyed the first 2 episodes based on what we have. and I'll kind of like later when we get into the discussion describe what I think of them in general. And this third episode wasn't much behind those. I enjoyed it just as much, I think.
Okay, interesting.
That's about it.
Cool. Okay, so if we go to Andy, your sort of thoughts, or introduce yourself, and your thoughts on the previous episode.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Andy, Angry Andy on the YouTube and on Twitter as well. That's where I mainly focus everything, to be honest. I don't really do much else. I do a lot with Dan when he drags me through the mire of bad cinema and bad stories and things like that, but I enjoy it. I think I enjoy the chaos of what he brings forward more than anything. It's the same with me, I think. I enjoy the chaos. The second episode, I thought, I was a little bit surprised of how much time we spent in the flashback. I thought it was going to be, because the first episode was kind of like, you got a dip and it came out and then went back in again. And then obviously going into this one, which we'll talk about, it's kind of like you're in it and then you're out straight away. So, yeah, I enjoyed the second episode. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as the first. And then my thoughts on this latest one isn't really that high. So, yeah, I'm agreeing in sort of like keeping sort of expectations. I think we spoke on the first episode of what I hoped might happen. I've kind of tempered those expectations now. I'm just seeing what happens and where it goes. And coming into this, I haven't looked at any reactions to the episode at all. I've not spoken to Dan about what he's thought. The only person I spoke to is my missus and what she thought. So I've got no idea what everybody else is saying across the Twitterverse or Star Wars or anything like that. So I'll be interested if anybody's got any insights other than the opinions that they've got themselves, as to see what the general thought is.
Well, we'll just tell you now that you're wrong. No matter what you think, Andy, you're just wrong. It doesn't matter what your opinions are, even if I agree with you, you're wrong. So you can't have a valid opinion here. That's not what this show is for. It's for my ego only. Anyway, thanks for... Well, I was initially just going to be the host on a couple episodes, and then I was like, to be honest, I might as well just do it for all of them. So I was just like, take that as you will. Spider Dan, why don't you introduce yourselves, tell us about the second episode, and then we'll go from there.
Spider Dan of Spider Dan on the Secret Balls podcast. I really enjoyed the first episode. I think there was a lot of stuff to kind of like, again, mostly in the flashbacks, because again, it was kind of setting up this intrigue in the modern day, present day stuff, a lot of intrigue, a lot of these enemies, a lot of the complications of being a daimyo, a kingpin of Tatooine. And there was stuff I liked, but I also got Scott's, I listened to the second episode and Scott's criticism of the kind of, let's have something happen in the present, please now. Something interesting is it's still just that second episode. It's still just setting more and more stuff up. Like some of the stuff that is quite interesting, like the Black Chrysanthemum, Satan,
Black Chrysanthemum.
Chrysanthemum, yes, Black Chrysanthemum, yes, yes, and the huts and stuff like that. Some of the stuff is really good. I like the train sequence with, again, all the Tusken Raiders stuff. I love anyway, so more of that was great. So yeah, but there was a kind of there's a decline happening for me, and I think this episode, unfortunately, also declines for me as well. But I'm sure we'll get into it.
Yeah, I mean, I like to check, although IMDb, everything has to be taken with a pinch of salt, because the majority of things on IMDb seem to be 7 point something. Like 80% of things I enjoy are 7 point something. I don't know what it is. There's very few things, especially movies, that kind of go out of that. But on this, these ones, it was, I think the first episode, I'm just, from what I can remember vaguely, it was like 7.5, I think. And then the second episode was like 8.1. And then this episode was like 7.1. So the general consensus is the first episode was pretty good. The second episode was better. The third episode's the weakest of the lot, which in brief, I kind of feel that way personally about the show as well. So we'll dive right into it. So obviously, it all starts off, I've got my notes here, it all starts off with, the water theft. You've got Stephen Root, who's in everything, it seems, who, goes to Boba Fett and then says, someone's basically stealing water, can you go sort this out? And then he goes and speaks to the gang with the most brightly coloured any things I think I've ever seen in Star Wars in my life. It was just like the most colourful Vespa speeders ever, which I wasn't expecting on Tatooine, a very, dusty place. Yeah. So if we kind of focus before the flashback, so if we just think of like how we thought of the biker gang and that sort of stuff, we'll start with Chris once again, because I want to hear his views, because he's the only person we haven't heard fully elaborate on things. So, and don't worry, Chris, anything you get wrong, I'll take a note of, and then we'll take the piss out of you for, so it's okay. What did you think of all the sort of first stuff?
It's not what I'm going to get wrong. It's what I'm going to say, Mike, because I messaged Dave and I went, I've got a bad feeling that Mike's going to want to hunt me down and take me out. So what I don't understand, and I'm sure there's a comic, Mike. I know you're going to tell me this because I know this is going to be something. What are we allowed to swear, by the way?
Yeah, as much as you want.
Yeah. What the fuck is going on with a Hell's Angels fucking group of baddies? And then you've got a load of Quadrophenia mods riding around on fucking mopeds. I'm sorry, Mike. I'm not having it in Star Wars. This is bullshit. And that's the one thing I took from this episode. I was invested in all of it until that point, and I'm like, he's even got fucking extra horns. I think it was on the blue bike. And I was like, what the hell is... Because you see him, we went to the Isle of Wight, and the guys are there in the Isle of Wight on all the mods and everything, doing the whole thing in Quadrophenia. It was... I've got to say, man, I'm sorry to say this. Please correct me, anybody, all of you correct me. But I was like, this is fucking bollocks. I'm sorry. It really, really did take me away from what I believe Star Wars is, because it's bringing it into the subconscious of all of that, like, a newer thing. But them guys do the Hell's Angel stuff, and I'm like, what the fuck's it? Sons of Anarchy. And I love that show. I was like, so that's why I didn't like this episode, and I'm so sorry. I've gone first. I always wear my heart on my sleeve, and Mike, you can cut me off right now.
Right, enough from Chris. No, I want to clarify here that, first of all, Chris, I appreciate you are always very open with your opinions, even though you have some mental ones, you're still valid. Yes. This one isn't one of those, I want to clarify. It's more some of the movie stuff and reviews you've done with Dave in the past. Yeah. I think you have brushed people the wrong way in certain ways. But in this whole show, the point is, if you genuinely watched this and thought this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life, or if you thought it was the best thing in your life, all opinions here are valid. I'm just intrigued to know what people do and don't like about it. So, Chris, you don't need to apologise to me. No holds barred. That's completely fine. So if we stick with... Let's go to Andy this time. Andy, what were your sort of thoughts on that first part?
I am in complete agreement. I was... When we first saw them, well, when we first heard about them, I was like, okay, all right. It's going to be that girl that was in the trailer, obviously. But in the trailer, we didn't see the color of her bike. I'm not sure whether they muted it or whether it was removed or whatever. But like everything we heard about them, like the cyborgs, the this, the that, I was like, okay, all right, cool. I'm interested. I want to see where this is going. But then seeing the bikes, seeing the Borg attachments, the guy with the eyepiece, they just ripped that straight off from Star Trek First Contact, didn't they? In the prop store. I just didn't buy it. I didn't buy it at all. I really didn't. I didn't buy it. They couldn't afford the water. I was like, how can you afford these bikes? The power supply to power the bikes? Because, fuel is a thing in Star Wars now, regardless of your opinions, because of, whatever. And, they've got these implants, which look quite expensive, unless they've stolen them. You don't know. And maybe that's something for a later episode or a spin-off series. God help us if that's the case. And then the chase, the chase was laboured, it was slow, and I don't know whether they just... Because obviously they're using the screen technology, I don't know whether that screen technology hindered sort of like the depth of speed, the perception of speed, or
I found that.
What they were doing with the speed, but the chase, it was laughable, and it really took me out of it. Like it took me out of it completely, and then the colours... the colours, it was almost like there was some kind of teen, superhero gang, from a Cartoon Network show or, something like that.
They look like the Power Rangers. They look like the Power Rangers. That's what they look like.
Oh God,
like Mice from Mars. I was going to say that as well. Sorry.
Yeah, but it was it took me out of it, and I didn't. I enjoyed everything else about the show because I feel like whatever tracks with the flashbacks is tracking with his current state of mind. So the fact that we've seen something really bad happen, in the flashback, I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but the fact that we're seeing something really bad happen in the flashback, which translates to people disrespecting him in real time, the next episode and the episode after that, it's going to be tracking, towards vengeance or, getting a bit more aggressive in what he does, because he's very, very respectful still. And it's kind of annoying me a little bit that he's still being sort of like, slow paced with his reactions, but maybe we'll see some kind of explosion. But I like the rest of the stuff in the episode just about. The biker gang completely took me out of everything.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and that's very interesting. I didn't think about what you said about the flashbacks kind of having some sort of impact parallel sort of thing with his state of mind. That's very interesting and insightful. So we'll go to Dan next, and then we'll finish off with Ben, because I'm going to start with Ben with a flashback thing. But Dan, so your sort of thoughts on the biker gang from Mos Espa?
Well, I want to call them the Mod Squad, and the mod stands for body modifications.
Oh, well, very nice. Oh, very
excellent.
Good. Because that is interesting. Like Andy was saying, the weapons and stuff they have is really interesting. But what Andy was saying about that bike chase, the graphics were awful. The special effects on the bikes were awful. I don't know if it's the design of them, because they're so close to the ground, they're so low lying, unlike the speeder bikes in the previous episode. I don't know if it's something to do with that, but every time they land or they do something, it just looks really janky and like almost like PS1 style graphics. It was just horrific to watch. And it was like Andy was saying, it was slow, it was boring. It was like 16-year-olds going around the council estate. It was awful. It was honestly dreadful to watch. Even worse, in some respects, was the fight with Black Chrysanthemum. There was a moment where the guy with the targeting device on his eye, he is stood 2 foot away from Chrysanthemum, and he is shooting directly at his armor. He's point blank shooting at his armor, and you're like, what are you doing? Like, you're a cyborg. You're supposed to be better than a human, and you're stood 2 feet in front of a guy and shooting directly, aiming at the armor. And I was just like, what is this? What is going on? This is like we've had in that first episode, we're talking about all these great references like Lone Wolf and Cub and The Man with No Name, all this sort of stuff. And they've just gone, quadrophenia, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, we had the train sequence from Lawrence of Arabia in the second episode, and this episode is the 60s Croydon attacking the Mod Squad.
we are the mods. It was just, and there was no character to them. They were just like, oh, there's no jobs, so we're there's nothing interesting about.
He gave them a job. He did give Black Chrysanthemum a job.
Yeah,
no worries, no issues.
Also, and you would think you would give him a job. He's this big, massive killer, Wookiee. But also the Bill from King of the Hill. Why is he, when he gives him a job, waiting on the other side of the wall and just goes, whoa, why are you giving him a job? We should kill him. Why is he directly just there? He didn't travel with Boba Fett, clearly. You can see that. Why is he just round the cut? Oh, sorry. What? He just pointing his finger at it. And I was just like, this whole episode was huge. I know we'll get into it, but it was a huge, just for me, absolute bollocks, as Chris was saying, complete bollocks. Just utter banther bollocks for me. So
amazing.
Not for me. So yeah, that's
I'm really glad I didn't get your opinion before we came on this done. Brilliant.
You'd have rolled each other up, wouldn't you?
I know.
Go on then, Ben. Tell us what your thoughts were on the Mod Squad.
First, I'd like to say that I watch enough British cinema to know what bollocks stands for. So, you guys aren't speaking foreign language to me, but I'd like to set the stage very, very briefly in order to discuss this episode, this show in general, and just all Disney era Star Wars. You can go into it, and from watching this third episode, you kind of have two instant reactions, these two signals firing up in your mind. You could either go one route and try to judge it all and criticize as high cinema, high art, or just look at it as just like this popcorn, cheap entertainment, and either or have set yourself up for really high expectations and come down, crashing down and say, oh man, what is this? Or take it really, really simply, episode by episode, and say, throw it at me, let me see what's there. And, that's how I've been treating most of Disney era Star Wars. I had some great moments where I think it's reached the highest potentials that Star Wars can aspire to. And some, of course, other things like even The Mandalorian show, which to me didn't present much of more than just popcorn entertainment. And when it comes to this episode, specifically, we're talking about this scene right now, right? These biker gang. I will try to one-up Daniel and say that I called them cyberpunk kids.
Very nice. Also good.
That kind of works, right? So it took a moment of adjustment to say, like, hold on a second. We are on Tatooine, which is very fine and recognizable, and now you have these stark contrast with these like high gear, almost like kids of the richer higher ups chilling on Tatooine in these bikes, which I've heard described on the internet, something that was homage to George Lucas's American Graffiti, because he liked cars, he liked racing, he grew up in Japan. He enjoyed putting as much of racing into his films, including the THX one, as much as possible, right? So we at least understand that they're coming from the good heart. But I feel like oftentimes, Jon Favreau particularly, he's like an adult Star Wars nerd, boomer generation nerd, who is playing in this sandbox, and half the time I scratch myself. I'm like, this is not a toy. If you really want to elevate Star Wars to the highest, levels, it's you don't populate it with cameos and little tinkery things over here and over there, just flashing our eyes. We're not kids, man. We're adults. We have different expectations from what teenage generation perhaps is getting out of this, right? But then again, you take a step back and you say, like, okay, this is popcorn to me. Let's just see it. Roll with the kids. So I was watching the episode on that note, not taking it seriously. And it took a moment of adjustment. And I said, they're kind of fun. They're just stupid fun. You see these cybernetically enhanced humans all across Star Wars comic books. In the old Marvel, in the Dark Horse era, in the new Marvel. I'm like, okay, all right, just let's go with it. Stylistic a little bit different. We'll talk about the chase in depth, but once again, I at least appreciate that I know where they're coming from. They try to do well. How it's executed, I think it's very important to separate the content of the show from the way that it's executed. You could say like, oh, at least I understand here. Well, okay, they kind of fucked up here. They messed up over there. But I see the direction. I see where it's going. So to me, it didn't pose as much of a problem. And the chase scene, which I agree with most of you guys, it kind of like underperformed, especially to the very highly kinetic scenes with the bikes in the previous episode, which felt you got all the speed out of them. It was fun, the excitement, the Westerner style, train scene was completely fantastic. That chase scene in third episode, plus Chrysanthemum, plus the little Tusken Raider scene there, which we'll talk in depth, they weren't deal breakers for me. It's something that I would highly criticize, but fundamentally, this show represents to me just cheap popcorn entertainment. This is, if I want serious Star Wars, I'll go watch Dune,
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting point, because we had a whole conversation about Star Wars and Dune and things, and it's like I feel like Dune could almost be in the Star Wars universe in certain ways, but that's a whole other conversation. I'll just add my thoughts on this part, and then I'll come back to you, Ben, for your Tusken Raider stuff, and then I want to go to Chris, because I haven't heard any of Chris's opinions on the Tusken Raider stuff yet, so kind of pre-planning a little bit. I was going to say, with my thoughts on it were, my biggest thing was not necessarily the colours in themselves, it was the fact that they weren't dirty sci-fi. That's what I like about Star Wars. With Star Trek, I've watched the new Star Trek movies by J.J. Abrams and stuff, and I've seen bits and pieces of Star Trek. I haven't watched a huge amount of the older stuff, but it didn't necessarily click with me, because ship flying is it's the part about sci-fi I'm least interested by. I know Star Trek's about exploration a lot as well, but for me, I was like, I like the dirty sci-fi. I like Neil Blomkamp, I like District 9, Elysium, those sort of things, where it looks like, poor, good technology. That's what I quite like. Robots that are poor, not these polished chrome things. And I found with this, I was like, okay, so they're poor, apparently. They don't have jobs. They're standing around a dumpster fire. They've got all these cybernetics, which I could be like, oh, maybe they got them before. Maybe it was a back alley thing. Okay. But these are the cleanest bikes I've ever seen in my life. And the whole premise of why they're involved is the fact that water's so expensive they can't afford it. So how are they cleaning these bikes? These bikes are shinier than any ship I've ever seen in all of Star Wars. And it's madness. You go into an Imperial Star Destroyer in the old films and how pristine and chrome everything is. That's still not as clean as these bikes are. And I just don't understand how it could be parked on a dust planet for more than 8 seconds and be like that. You go for a walk in the woods wearing white trousers. You can't walk more than 3 foot and get covered in dirt. So that bit, immediately I was a bit like, oh, maybe the bikes will get, dirty as it goes on. Maybe we'll see that. No. The cybernetic things I thought were cool. I like that, but it's quite common in Star Wars in like the expanded canon and obviously in Legends and things. So for that part wasn't a problem for me, but we'll get to it towards the end. But the chase scene was the real. That was the part of the episode that really kind of sunk down for me. So if we get into the flashback bit. And then after that, we'll just talk about the rest of the episode. So, Ben, the flashback part, I know that you, in the last episode we spoke about, one of your favourite parts, I think you said, about Boba Fett so far was the Tusken Raider culture and that sort of thing. So I've seen a lot of criticism on the internet about this. Like, what do you think about how they handled getting rid of the Tuskens and that whole kind of flashback?
Yeah. I think this particular scene represents the general problem I have with the Disney era Star Wars. Like it harkens back to the Rogue One cinema experience that I had, which it's a fantastically written film that is intelligent. And once again, the content of the story makes sense. It's the movie that none of us expected or thought that we wanted, right? And then you see the trailer, you go in theaters like, holy shit, what am I looking at? And the content, once itself, it's good. The way it is told, the whole art of cinema is being able to convey emotion from scene to scene, from shot to shot. And it just failed to do it for me. Like, I didn't care for any death in Rogue One. And same here, you set up Tuskens in episode 2. Once again, I have to reiterate that Robert Rodriguez is not Chris Nolan. He makes a certain type of cinema that you see guns blazing and shit exploding. It's like, oh, that was cool. That was fun. And you chew your popcorn. That's it. That's the end of the story. That's the kind of cinema he makes. And I don't want to throw the guy under the bus for it. There's a audience for these kind of films. People appreciate them. People like escapism and just pure stupid entertainment without any kind of like higher storytelling, right? But you did set up the Tuskens in episode 2. And I have to say, once again, it's what we see. It's not how it's told. It didn't have the most amazing, groundbreaking cinematic experience. It's just like, we see culture, right? We see material culture. We see that these people are more than savages. They are there. They accept Boba Fett. They recognize strength in him. You built this bond. And here, I think Robert Rodriguez and Jon Favreau, because I think it's a collaborative process. One was writing the episode, another one was directing it. They misfired. You don't show us the drama, the tension, the stakes by quickly disposing of the Tuskens. Like, oh, by the way, they're dead. Let's move on with the show. Like, no. This is where most of the episode should have focused on. Of that, because I felt that the small little interspersed scene there, reiterating the fact that childhood Boba Fett sees his father Jango fly off Camino on that ship, reinforcing the idea that he is an abandoned child. And these Tuskens embrace him. It's a very powerful plot device, plot point to focus on, emphasize it, and then by the end of the episode, chop those heads. That's so that the audience goes like, "Oh man, oh I didn't expect this, or I did expect this, but this savage, this brutal, oh that's not cool." That sometimes when you have a cold-hearted kind of character like Boba Fett, and also Din Djarin, which we don't even see his face for most of the episode, if he himself doesn't describe what goes on inside of that person's heart and mind, then the characters surrounding him do. And in case of Boba Fett, if he's supposed to have this kind of like cold and calculated look, it's the Tuskens that bring credence to what goes on in his heart. And I think there's just a very important plot device was just completely swept under the rug.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So interestingly for me, I just want to point out, did we see the body of the child Tusken and the female Tusken?
No,
I don't think so.
No, we didn't.
The chieftain, yes, we did. We saw the chieftain.
We saw the chief, but not the warrior. Not the warrior woman or the youngling.
Or the child, yeah.
So I wonder if we're not quite done with the Tuskens in that regard then. Because like I was saying about sort of like being the parallels between the way he is with the Tuskens and the way he acts sort of in real time. I wonder if something will come with that. Because obviously nobody in TV and film, nobody's dead unless you see them dead.
It's
unless they do just write them out on the side and somebody says, "Oh, he's dead. He's sleeping with."
Unless they're from another universe, a robot, a clone, or something else.
It's totally plausible, but for the sake of that scene, the train has passed. It's they threw the ball on that one.
Yeah, you're right. It happens pretty much right at the start, and you're like, "Whoa, okay." Because I literally was like, "Okay, well, Jesus." So. Wow, we're at this point already. Okay, he spent all this time building up this. He becomes one of them. He's been given a gaffy stick. He's got all this. He's helped them secure their own future, and they're gone. Brilliant.
It was very abrupt, especially for an episode that I think is the shortest so far. I was like, could have maybe showed a bit more, but maybe what's going to happen is, as I didn't think about this, maybe get to see the youngling and the warrior. Maybe in the next episode there'll be the final flashback. They'll kind of communicate with him what actually happened. You get to see what happened in a longer episode that maybe will tie up the flashbacks. I'm not sure, but Chris, so we haven't heard your opinions on the Tusken Raiders. So what did you think, like, from all the people we've spoken to and obviously online as well, it's quite a thing. Some people like the current era stuff with Boba Fett and the flashbacks aren't as interesting to them. And other people found that the flashbacks are the most interesting and the current stuff's not interesting. What about you? What did you think of the Tusken Raiders from episode 1 and 2? And then also how it is potentially been wrapped up, maybe not, in this episode?
I think, and Dan said it before, the guy who was, the cyborg shooting from 2 meters away. Obviously, if you're going to try and stay away from killing yourself, you just put camp in the middle of the desert as a train goes past and don't think, I think we need to move here because, Boba's had to go and do the business and take him out sort of thing. It's Star Wars 101. It is what Star Wars is about. I must say, watching this series so far, if there was ever going to be an R-rated Star Wars property, this is crying out for it because I think Boba Fett has got that evil side to him that, Mandalorian was always wrestling with his conscience. He was actually a good guy. He had the baby. I did think when, they all got taken out, I thought, oh, please don't go in one of the tents and there's a baby there and we're going to get another, let's everyone buy the teddy bear, the child and all that stuff. I did think that was coming. But I do honestly believe that it could. I know they're never going to do it because of Disney Plus and the audience that it's catering to. Look, we're all, I'm 43 years old, so it's like we're catering to men at our age. You're young in your 20s, Mike. No disrespect to anyone else, but we're all around. There's an age. But then you've got obviously children as well. People. Kids want to buy. Like The Child was one of the biggest marketing things that have come from Disney Plus. In the last 18 months, it's amazing. It's probably like when we were kids, I suppose. Like the Cabbage Patch Kids or whatever it was, or Care Bears or something. When the girls always buy stuff like that,
I saw t-shirts in Primark today as I was walking home from work.
Yeah, Megan's been bought with like underwear from her mum for Christmas that had a little, Grogu on it, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is now when you can get it in Primark, that's when you know that it's
you've made
it. Cobra Kai's in there now, I think, as well. But no, I do think. Watching it, it's the Star Wars DNA. It's like you watch the obvious things. I think I did like the flashbacks. I think that's probably why it took me out with the bike thing. And we're talking about Cyberpunk, which I did buy the computer game, and it was absolutely goddamn awful. Cyberpunk 2077, one of the worst games ever. Awful game. I bought that day one special edition. So excited, Keanu Reeves. It was awful, and they're trying the best to save it. I've got a theory. Now, we've seen in the Marvel things, there is a multiverse going on. No spoilers. I know quite a big one that's just happened. Could this be the Fast and Furious multiverse? Is Dominic Toretto, Vin Diesel going to pop up in his Dodge Charger like the guys in the bike? There's a multiverse to be explored. They got in space. Yeah, they got into space in the last one in a Pontiac Ferrari.
I mean, these episodes have been all about family.
Yeah,
exactly. But no, I do think my last thing is I like the flashbacks. I think that's probably why the speeder chase and the bike thing just really took it out of me, because I think there's a great story there with him, how he becomes who he is. He was obviously, I have a problem with Boba Fett. I know that he's an absolute legend in the Star Wars world for basically falling down a hole in Return of the Jedi. That's all he did. I had the figure when I was a kid. I had the big Millennium Falcon. I had everything. I remember going for my birthday in Manchester and going, and we would know, I'm not also 9 kids. We had no money. So it used to be once a year, you get all your Star Wars stuff. And I used to go and I got the Millennium Falcon. I had everything, the chessboard, everything. And I had Boba Fett and I had Luke, Han, the different ones. And coincidentally, I went to my mother-in-law's loft and my brother-in-law has got every single figure, she's kept everything, all like the X-Wings, everything. I'm dying to get up there, and he knows they're there. He's like, you're not taking them, but I'm because they're all up there. Everything is all the daughters have got absolutely fuck all on toe. Exactly that, yeah. But my mother-in-law's kept all of it. I went up there because it was a squirrel. I'm like, oh my god, have you found anything? It's like, nope. And I'm opening the boxes, going, this is ridiculous. I know how much that is, but no, I think I've gone completely off now, Anna. But I just think that there's such good stuff there with the flashbacks and the way they're bringing it together. I like that because it's putting meat on the bones. I just have a problem with Boba Fett as a character. I just think they've absolutely, this mythical character has been created from nothing. He's great. He's got his own show. And I think because The Mandalorian, it had to be the way it was come. Everyone was at the end of Mandalorian going, oh my God, what is this Book of Boba Fett? This has come from nowhere. Brilliant. I'm just not convinced by Fennec or Boba Fett, really. I think he just walks around like he's been to the gym with 2 carpets on like this, walks around everywhere. And like you say, he's got a conscience now from nowhere. And it's like, you don't have a conscience. You've come and took over Jabba's palace and everything. Carry that on. Just kill people wantonly. Be the badass that you want to be. I think that's where even petting the big monster thing, I was like, oh my God. So anyway, I know there's a twist on that. We can see that coming all the way. And if someone was going to kill me, I don't let the big 12-foot fucking monster just go. I'm sorry, that is ridiculous. 10 minutes early, he's wanting to absolutely decimate me. And you go, don't worry about it, mate. You've just got signed up for the wrong killing contract. See you next time. Bit of foreshadowing for later. But there you go. Anyway, sorry, I'm off. I'm sorry, guys.
No, that's completely fine. I mean, I'm sure I'll just ask for Dan and Andy's opinions on the flashback, and after that, we'll do a big old free for all for Black Chrysanthemum and the speeder chase, if you call it a chase, more of like a slow, a slow go. But I'll say, so Dan, if you want to go first with this, your thoughts on the flashbacky part.
I think what they were going for with this was an Uncle Owen, Aunt Peru burnt bodies thing, which for me, it really didn't work. It felt really rushed. I think there was a better way you could have done it as well. I think if you had Boba Fett riding slowly back on the Bantha and he's witnessing all this stuff going on, and there is nothing he can do because he can't cover that distance himself in time. He can't cover it with the Bantha, and you just cut. And you don't have to show all of it. You don't have to show the more violent bits. Just like pew pew and the sparks and stuff, and the attacking of all the people. Again, you don't have to show it to the children or the women and the children. You don't have to show all that. You can just show the odd bit, and it's just his reaction. It's his acting, like no, like or something like that. I think that would have been more effective, and it would have like gone, oh shit, I really, because I loved all the Tusken Raider stuff, and it feels like they've just fucking thrown it away, just like rubbish now. We're back, we spent almost no time in the modern day, so now we're just going to drastically switch and just be like, everything is happening. But in those first 2 episodes, there was so much stuff being set up as well, and like, who's the mayor, what's this, and a lot of intrigue. And I feel like we met the mayor in episode 2, so that was gone, that and it was just a hammerhead alien, and I was like, okay, that's fine, but there's not really much intrigue now. And we learnt the ninjas were hired by the mayor. Again, that intrigue is gone. The Hutts in this episode have just gone, don't worry about it. Again, intrigue, interest, and other plot points are just being fucking thrown away in the bin. Like within seconds, they're just going. It's like watching Entourage, because with that there was these conflicts, and that's what they're doing in this. They're going. Here's a conflict, but don't worry about it. It's fine. We sorted it. Sack it off. And it's starting to piss me off because I've like all the ideas and all the kind of like I know like Star Wars fans can like piss themselves off in a way by predicting stuff, but I think I might probably have done that now. But
guilty as charged.
Like especially like Last Jedi, especially a lot of the predictions were like, no, we're throwing the lightsaber behind my back. I just feel like why, the whole thing with I'm just going to call him the evil Wookiee or Newbacker I was reading a tweet from Kieran Gillen, who created the character in the comic, and he said, "Oh, my working title was Newbacker for that character." So I'm going to call him Newbacker. I think that's easier because even the writer doesn't know how to pronounce the name apparently. So I was like, "Okay, I'll just call him Newbacker." Anyway, like the fact that they've set up this big antagonistic character. Yeah, we had the fight, but then they've just let him go free. They've thrown that away, and I feel like there's so much they could have built up, and the only one thing they've introduced is the mod squad, and that's like my least favorite thing about it. So yeah, again, not happy. I do have one bit I enjoy, but I'll get into that later. But no, it's a no from me.
Okay, and fair enough. Valid points. And then Andy, so the flashbacks and that sort of stuff. What were your strong opinions on that?
Yeah, everybody said it, after spending so much time with him in the second episode, really getting to grips with their culture, the way they behave, the way they've taken him on board, and everything, the way they dress him, the way he saves them and they reciprocate, in their way. And it's all undone already. Or so we're led to believe. Obviously, for me, something without trying to predict it, we didn't see the body of the youngling. We didn't see the body of the female warrior. If she is female, I'm only going off
the
that
actress.
Some woman's playing the character, isn't it? So, something may come of it. I hope something does. Hope it's we get something that really progresses him as a character within the flashback still, but it was a dud for me because it just happened so abruptly, so quickly. It would have made more sense, like's been said, if it came at the end. This is the twist, this is the shock. It's all gone. All this wonderful life that we think he's going to get, that we know he's not going to get, because otherwise he wouldn't be in this situation. He wouldn't have gone to help Mando. He wouldn't be traveling around the galaxy, collecting his armor back up and wanting to take control of Tatooine. So we knew this wasn't going to last. I think I said it in the first episode. There's going to be something drastically that happens, but not like this. To quote The Matrix, not like this. Not like this. You know what I mean? It deserved a bit more of a climactic feel. Like Dan said, you don't have to get in there and show the nitty-gritty of blood and death and misery, but we've seen very little emotion from Boba so far. This was the opportunity, because he's in a place where he feels like he's been accepted. He's one of them, and he's changing his perspective. He's changing the way he wants to be and behave. This is the opportunity to show that there is still some of that dark, disintegrating personality still in there. There has to be a reason why Vader said no disintegrations. We need to see that side of Boba. And maybe we'll get it in the flashbacks, and maybe we'll get it in the real world. I mean, we saw it in Mando when he kicks the ass out of that entire platoon. A lot of people are expecting that. And I think reactions, like I said, I haven't seen the reactions to this episode, but the way you're all saying, it sounds like it's coming across a bit of a negative. Perhaps people are still wanting to see this ultra violence. Yeah. And I agree with Chris. This is the perfect opportunity to show that, where you don't have to be R-rated with it, but we saw him destroy an entire platoon of stormtroopers. You can do that still. I don't know.
He's not a good guy. Boba Fett.
No.
I don't like using the word Disneyfying, because I have awful traumatic memories of watching Star Wars prequels in theaters, unfortunately. But it's reading the War of Bounty Hunters Legends books as I'm watching the show, just to compare notes, right? Yeah. I'm on the third book. I almost finished it. Those are the legend books, some of the few that I kept for many, many years from reading. And I'm not too fond of them. They're not that amazing to me. They're like, okay, all right. There's a lot of things that I don't buy there. And it's equally shallow here in the show. So it's not to say that it's remember how things were back in the day. I hate when fans do that. It's purest my point of view, where Legends was this crispy, amazing, shiny thing, and everything new Disneyfied is bad. But when you make Boba Fett and turn him into this good guy, he's at the very least, he's an anti-hero. He's not a good guy. If you're putting this nice coat on him, you're Disneyfying him.
Yeah. To me, he's the Punisher of Star Wars.
Yeah.
It should be that one that can sort of have these moments, like in the Punisher film with Tom Jane. It's my favorite one. Yeah, it's not quite accurate, the Punisher and whatever, but those moments when he's accepting of a family that's oddball and doesn't quite work, you get that with the Sand People in this. You get that, and it works in the context of he's lost everything. He's lost his employer. Han Solo's obviously buggered off. He's got nothing. The Empire doesn't want him anymore, because otherwise they would have sent somebody to come and get him. He's got nothing. He got robbed by Jawas, for Christ's sake. It's embarrassing for him. He's at his lowest ebb. You know what I mean? I seeing the reactions to that in the first couple of episodes, negative reactions. I was like, nah, you're all, being ultra negative for no reason. I can buy him being robbed by Jawas because he's injured to hell. He's just nearly been digested. But there has to be something more. I think for me, there has to be something more, and I'm a little bit worried about where it's going to come from. I think.
Yeah, because I've been thinking, because one of the things I think I'm struggling with a little bit, because I did enjoy this episode, but I would probably say that, I mean, I enjoy almost all Star Wars, even the worst books and comics I've consumed. At the very worst, they're okay. Of recent years, I think the worst Star Wars content, actually, for me, in the new canon, is actually The Rise of Skywalker, to be honest with you. And I still really enjoy that movie. I just think the plot is just atrocious. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that, because I've already whinged about that a lot in my podcast and everywhere else I can. But I think
you haven't whinged about it with me.
Well, I mean, I haven't had you on the show and I haven't had Dan on the show, so there's still ample time.
It could happen.
It could, and it will. But I think with Boba Fett, I think the problem is that they can't really decide what tone they want. You know, with Mandalorian, it was very consistent. It was that here's basically a nomad, someone who's got no one who he's close to. He finds a vulnerable creature that needs him and actually shows him affection and wants to see past the mask, wants to actually know who he is as a person and wants to go through that with him. And it's his journey of basically becoming a father while realizing that the world he's bringing his kid up in isn't right, and him trying to figure out what it is to be a Mandalorian, who he is as a person, all these layers to things, which is one of the reasons I think that Mandalorian worked for so many Star Wars fans. And in Boba Fett, you've already got this, and also Mandalorian had no expectation. It's here's a new character from the first episode, here's what he is, he's a badass, and we'll go from there. With Boba Fett, because there's the Legends expectation, there's the general, like, oh, we've been waiting for him to get out of the Sarlacc pit. You know, in Legends he did it, but like, oh, we've been waiting for him to get out of the Sarlacc pit, and we knew he survived. Like, a lot of the sort of the non-super fans have been waiting for this for ages, and you get that bit, and then you're like, cool, Boba Fett's going to kick some ass like we saw him do. You know, it's directed by Robert Rodriguez, that episode. He's going to kick some ass. And then it's like, okay, no, he's going to get beaten up at almost every stage, and then also randomly have a couple of nice creature interactions. And it's like, you can be a badass and still be nice to animals, obviously, but it's one of those things where it's just like, I feel like they're trying to be like, oh yeah, oh, you remember Boba Fett is the badass, well, he's a changed man now. It's like, okay, but you don't have a near-death experience and then lose every skill you've ever got. Yeah. And the problem is, you've got him when he fought Black Chrysanthemum, and to clarify, Black Chrysanthemum, they haven't shown this in the show very much. Obviously, for listeners, I confirmed in the last episode, but he was shown in the Darth Vader comics 2015 by Kieran Gillen, continued in the Dr. Aphra comics. He's meant to be the opposite of Chewbacca. Chewbacca's a fierce warrior, but you don't get to see him let loose. Black Chrysanthemum is brutal. He's in gladiator pits. You know, you saw him have the brass knuckles. He is one of the most dangerous hand-to-hand fighters in probably all of Star Wars. But the problem is that if you haven't read 50 to 70 comics, which most Star Wars fans haven't, you don't know that. So when a lot of people see Boba Fett get the shit kicked out of him by this Wookiee who's basically just growled at him slightly in the previous episode and has done nothing else, there's none of that thing where you need to show or say something. You need someone to go, oh my god, Black Chrysanthemum, what? The one who took on 400 stormtroopers and ripped all their arms off? Or, oh my god, Black Chrysanthemum, I fought him once and he almost killed me. I mean, in the comics, he fought Obi-Wan and almost killed Obi-Wan. Like, Obi-Wan just got out. That's why he's got a little scar there. That's from Obi-Wan's lightsaber, which I assume now, because they made the costume, he's probably going to pop up in a flashback of Kenobi, but still. The problem is they've got this character who is really strong. They haven't shown him to be strong. They've just have him beat up a really weak, greasy Boba Fett who's healing, and then have a couple of the mod squad cyberpunks come up and shank him, and he's still surviving. And it's like, okay, he's strong, and you're thinking, oh, I see what they're doing. Black Chrysanthemum's going to get hired by Boba Fett, and then he just jogs off into the desert. And you're like,
he literally just goes, oh, cheers, mate.
He does what, and I call this like the man half jog, okay, which is, you know, when you're driving down the road and someone's about to cross the road and you let them go and they put their hand up and do this walk, which they look like they're moving faster, but they're not actually moving any faster. They're just moving their arms a bit quicker. Yeah. And like, oh, thanks, guy. I'm showing you that I'm moving across the road quick, but I'm not actually moving any faster. That's how he left. And you're like, right, so you could probably, in one swoop, knock both Fennec and Boba down. Boba's not even got his helmet on. You could curb stomp Boba, probably choke out Fennec, and then you'd have Jabba's palace, and you're like, I know Fennec was aiming a gun at him.
He could kill the two, you know.
He could kill anyone.
He could kill everyone. He could kill everyone in that bit. He could kill the Rancor. He could kill Danny Trejo.
Yeah, exactly. And I also want to say I'm glad Danny Trejo's finally in Star Wars. Huzzah.
Hey.
But, you know, that was a nice little thing. And, you know, the Rancor being in it, that's cool. There's going to be a payoff to that. It's going to be... I'm just hoping that... What I suspect is happening is all of this is building up a bit too slow for my taste. I'm starting to think this series should have been 6 episodes maybe, or even 5, depending on what the next 2 are like. But I'm hoping what's going to happen is everyone's going, I want Boba Fett to go mental. I want him to go mental. And one thing's going to happen, and he's going to snap. I suspect maybe the Rancor's going to get killed or something. Or maybe he's going to find the youngling kid or something like that, and they're going to get killed by someone, and he's going to go mental. You're going to see the bulging eyes you saw in the episode of Mandalorian, where he is just brutal. He's smashing stormtroopers and all this stuff. I'm hoping he's going to snap. I'm hoping we're going to see that. But what I'm worried about is they're going to have this diluted Boba Fett for like 6 episodes, and then right at the end go, and here's 5 minutes of badassery. And it's like, I don't need 7 episodes equating to some 3 to 5 hours of Boba Fett to see 5 minutes of coolness. If I could just watch the episode of The Mandalorian, like, why would I waste all this time to do that? And what I'm worried about is they're trying to make him too good, because what I think they're going to do is trying to do like an Avengers style thing, which is the Ahsoka show is going to connect with the Boba Fett show, that's going to connect with Mandalorian. If Rangers of the New Republic's still going to happen, who knows? Plus some of the other shows that are probably going to get announced over time around the same period. That's all going to build up to a remake of the Heir to the Empire trilogy with Thrawn. That's what it's all going to be. And what I'm worried about is they're trying to make Boba Fett too likable, because when he does this super team up with all of the other nice characters from this era to fight Thrawn, no one's going to be like, what, Boba Fett? He's helping everyone. And I worry that they're focusing, and this is a problem that a lot of movies do when they're trying to start a franchise, which is they're focusing so much on setting things up for the next few, they're not actually building the plot of this one. And that's a concern of mine for this show. So that was my thoughts. I thought Black Chrysanthemum, he would have killed Boba Fett, to be clear. Like, he would destroy Boba Fett. If Boba Fett's in full armor, might have a chance. But Black Chrysanthemum's brutal, but they don't show it. So with that in mind...
You hear him pretty much break his back.
That's one thing that baffled me. You watch him go, and I thought, oh, Boba Fett's going to be in a state, he's going to go back in his back to tank. But he was like, afterwards, he's like, oh yeah, put the Gamorrean who got bit a little bit in the shoulder in the back to tank. I'm like, you just had your back snapped. What's happening? You just had a Wookiee.
Let me just put my dressing gown on.
Yeah, and then just cross my arms a little bit and walk in slowly. It's like, but did you not just get crushed by basically a 7-foot bodybuilder chimpanzee sort of thing where there's so much muscle that it literally crack your back? You didn't just go to the chiropractor and like, wow, thanks, Black Chrysanthemum. I feel so much better now. It's not, you could have been dead. And it's just,
it was a back to tank. You see,
inconsistency.
they explained it.
Yeah, but I know he's got the back to tank, but he didn't go in the back to tank back after fighting.
I'm being sarcastic. I don't think back to tank would be broken back.
I see.
It's a fix my back to tank.
Oh, okay. It's a 2.0 version.
Okay, so I think with this in mind, we'll get on to, obviously, we'll talk about Black Chrysanthemum as well in bits and pieces, but I think the main event is the ending. And I'll just say my piece on this. I thought, agreed with what's kind of already been mentioned a bit, I thought that the scene, as you guys have said, it was janky. It lasted ages. It showed nothing. They did that thing as like a little homage, which is people carrying out a pane of glass or a painting and someone goes through it. And I'm just like, I've seen this so many fucking times. I don't ever want to see it ever again. The car chase was boring. It lasted forever. It didn't feel like there was any thrill to anything because I didn't care of any character who was involved in it. And it felt like someone had sped up footage. So it just looked like when someone's walking and you speed it up, it doesn't look like they're running. It looks like the footage is wrong and they're moving weirdly fast. And that's how it felt. You know, they go around these corners and they slow down ridiculously, and then they're going in a straight line, but they're not really going that fast. I'm like, if this guy wants to get away that much, that he's spinning out of control and falling through things and etc., he would be going fast. And I don't know if it's a production issue or what. So with this ending racing things, if anyone wants to put your hand on the goat first, because I've lost track of who spoke last, because I've been talking now for about 15 minutes. Who wants to dive right in and say their probably brutal thoughts on the ending? Are you doing it, Ben? Are you riling up? Go on then, Ben. Start us off, and we'll go from there.
If you gentlemen don't mind me taking
you go right ahead, Ben.
Oh, go ahead.
All in all, yes, that change scene was so far the weakest point of this episode so far. But once again, for me, with the mindset that I'm coming into the show, it wasn't a deal breaker. I looked at it, I said, well, this is disappointment. We got some cracked eggs over here. Sometimes just things. What really makes me scratch my head and raise the question is, why is this inconsistency primarily populating all the live action parts of Star Wars and not the animated? Because when we look at Star Wars Rebels, just for record, I'll say that I think that the Clone Wars show, the Rebels show, and the Attack of the Clones are the best things that have it to Star Wars since 1983. Those like as close to perfection as possible.
You mean Bad Batch? Would you mean Bad Batch, Rebels, and Clone Wars?
Yes, Bad Batch, Rebels, and Clone Wars, the 3 animated shows. And it seems like they're able to keep their stories and character developments on track when the animated shows are involved. I don't understand when things don't connect, at least for me personally, when it comes to Mandalorian or the Book of Boba Fett. It's very uneven and very wonky and very odd. I could forgive one chase scene that just didn't work technically, but at least I could say, like, okay, I can follow the story here. It's just that the picture is mired. The picture doesn't look right. But so the hell with it. I know where they're taking me here. I'm still excited and invested for this character. I don't understand why it's so difficult with a prominent showrunner like Jon Favreau. I personally don't think much of him, but fans seem to embrace his work. Why can't he have like a more concerted effort to say, like, this is the single vision that we're taking this, and these characters need to have their arcs through episode 3, 4, 5, and 6 or whatever to connect it all into this one complete package. Like what you said earlier, Mike, I completely agree with. This scene and the way they're treating Boba Fett represents this very marketed industrial approach to making this Star Wars off the conveyor belt, and like more, come on. And I can't help but agree with most of fans, and I'm a very optimistic Star Wars fan. Star Wars is not special anymore. It doesn't feel exciting anymore because it needs to connect and allude to and be this larger universe thing. And granted, they have done it in Star Wars Legends. Granted, Boba Fett turned from a nobody a faceless bounty hunter to almost overnight helping the New Alliance and Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and squash his beef with them. Granted, that happened all before, but here you are starting from scratch. You purposely took the 40-year rich history of storytelling and set it on the side, which I'm fine with. I wasn't against that at all. I said, by all means. And just comparing this chase scene, which we didn't like, it kind of leaves the bitter taste in your mouth. I just want to make this comparison. Star Wars works best when it doesn't play into fan expectations and there is no pressure on the filmmakers to deliver something. And a prime example of that is from the novel's standpoint in The High Republic, which is, to me, breaking new ground. It feels fresh. It feels exciting. It throws me in that time era when I was a 7-year-old enjoying Star Wars. And same happened with The Bad Batch. We barely saw this group in the previous show at the closing of the Clone Wars show. We didn't know what to expect, what kind of personality types there are. And I was so happy to see that the show didn't become Clone Wars 2.0. It did something entirely different. It put this innocent youth, right, Omega, a character who's a nobody, at the forefront of the show. And I wish the Book of Boba Fett did that as well. It played on subverting expectations, but in a more uniform way, in a more concerted way. And if this chase scene, more than anything, just reveals how disconnected they seem from episode to episode, director to director.
Yeah. And Chris, I want to know your sort of opinions on the both, because obviously you aren't entrenched in the world of Star Wars quite in the same way that the rest of us are. So with you, when you saw obviously Black Chrysanthemum and the Rancor, as Danny Trejo stuff, and then also the chase scene, what did you think of those elements of this? Did you think similarly to what we were like, where it's like, oh, there's some inconsistencies, it's not quite as good? Or for you, did you think it was cool, but you weren't expecting much? Like, what was your sort of perspective on that?
I think, because obviously it's 7 episodes, isn't it? And I think there's some things there straight away that are laid down. I think the Rancor isn't this, I'm going to put my eyes on Boba Fett and I'm going to love you forever and let you ride me, like fucking rodeo. I think that's actually the I think that's the Hutt's final play, and basically it's gonna we get that little line, he'll be back sort of thing, so I think that is an absolute blag, and I do think we're after some original stuff. And basically, most of this was ripped out of Return of the Jedi. We've got the trapdoor, Luke, everything, which as a kid, I absolutely loved that scene, and I had the little, I don't know the names to us properly, but the bloody pig fucking hog things, the green thing. Yeah, I had the little figure, and I always made sure that he got a good kicking off Luke and stuff when I was a kid and all that. So I think it's laying down the markers for some pretty obvious things. I could be wrong. I was a massive fan years ago of Smallville. The Superman. I love Superman. He's my favorite superhero out of all of them. As you know, Mike, Superman 2, God-like film forever and a day. Don't care what anybody says. I love Endgame. I love all the Marvel stuff, but Superman 2 is the best ever. Christopher Reeve, the man. But in Smallville, you would have 20 episodes a season, but you'd always get these shit episodes where someone comes to Clark and goes, oh my God, there's a cat stuck up a tree. Oh, hang on a minute, my truck's broke down and we need to harvest this field. And we spend a full episode of just shit. And this is a bit like The Mandalorian. I have a lot of respect for Disney, where it's not just our episodes are 45 minutes or an hour. They are as long as they want this episode to be. One of the earlier Mandalorian episodes was about 23 minutes. I think it was the second one, but it was also it was one of them was really short. And I was like, this is bizarre. But the one before,
the credits are so long. You look at it, go, 35 minutes, and then it finishes like 23. Minutes. You're like, what?
So it's about 50, and this was 36 minutes, but realistically, we're looking about 25 really with the credits either side and the skipping everything as you can do
and the recap.
Recap. And I respect that, because it's like, well, this is going to be as long as we want it to be to tell this story. But also, this felt like an episode of Smallville. That guy comes and goes, oh my God, I'm harvesting water. And these bad people, because we need to introduce them into the world, we need you to go and stamp your authority. It's got fuck all to do with the show, really. But we just need you to come and do it, because it's going to bring these people in and they're going to mean something. And that's not being disrespectful to anyone. I'm not trying to be a smart ass. I see it. As I watch it, as I see it, I'm a big Star Wars fan. I wanted so much from this. And I come away thinking, yeah, I really hope that the 4 episodes. Now, I did not like WandaVision. I thought the first 2 episodes they released was absolutely a disgrace, because it's set in 1950s. I Love Lucy bollocks. Anybody who's not into the proper Marvel stuff is going to walk away and go, well, what the fuck was that? And everyone I knew went, what the hell was that? There should have been 3 episodes, because it gives you that foundation. And I like the way they do this. It's every week. Great. You know, there's no real spoilers unless you're within the world. You can just watch it for what it is. I just felt that it's just a waste of the characters. Chrysanthemum, he's obviously going to come back in the 7th episode and save Boba. He's going to come back because he's given that respect to say, you know what? You're not such a bad guy after all. And he's going to come in Han Solo style, you know, just as about to blow up the Death Star, and he's going to go, woo, take it home, kid, or whatever, and that's going to be the end of it. And he's going to set up his own franchise, probably. There's going to be some way, because they can't get away from that. They can't tell a story. He should have been taken out. He should have been, the Rancor should have gone, Danny Trejo, take him downstairs, let's show him I mean business. That's how it should have gone. And I love what you said, Mike, about the walking away, because that is fantastic. It was, and I was laughing because, little story, my wife, a few years ago, she doesn't wear a lot of heels. We went out on a night out, got abandoned by our friends. They went to go clubbing. And my wife's like, well, that's it. I'm not getting a taxi. And we were about 1.5 miles away from our house. I went, you can't walk in them heels. I'm not giving you a piggyback. I mean, I'm 6'2", she's 5'3". I don't care. And she isn't, you know, she's quite a small, petite. I'm like, there's no way I'm carrying you. And she did the same thing. And she was running next to me in the heels, and she sounded like a horse galloping. And I'm walking, and I went, you do realize that with this pathetic run you're doing, he's not going any faster than my walk. You know what I mean? It's just, so when you said it, I love that, because when he walked off camera, it was ridiculous. It's like, well, where are you actually going? You know, you just
walking into a ravine.
Yeah, the Huts are there who have just fucking thrown you under the bus. Surely you're going to go and take them out because they've got no respect for you. Yeah. It was ridiculous. So I think we've got the DNA of the Marvels, Disney era stuff. We're going to get a hero's redemption story somewhere. And that's what I felt. I'm definitely going to watch all of it, because I know I felt that on some of the other series. And then when it got towards the end, I'm like, oh, well, actually, this does actually make sense. And sometimes if you watch it as one complete long film, it's a lot better to watch than, you know, just watching it in stages. And that's what's about WandaVision. Them first 2 episodes were awful for me because they didn't lay any foundations. And then it got better as the series went on. So that's how I feel. I feel that it's a missed opportunity. Robert Rodriguez directed the 1st and 3rd episodes. I'm with you. Robert Rodriguez, you know, years ago, 90s, stuff like that, some great movies. I've watched them all, you know, love the guy. I just don't know whether he gets it. And I think sometimes you can just be too clever. If you're trying to do your own slant on things, you can just be too much of a smart ass. And I don't feel that we're getting the best out of the mythical Boba Fett, which everybody's wanted for nearly 40 years.
Very well put. And so, Spider-Dan and Andy, your opinions. I can't remember who I went to first. I think Spider-Dan last time. So, Andy, do you want to hit it home?
Go, Andy.
Yeah, well, again, like from what we've been talking about, I feel like the biker gang took away important moments from other characters, just from what we've been saying. So like Chrysanthemum's beating the absolute living daylights out of Boba, and it's the biker gang that save him. But we haven't really seen much of Fennec Shand, have we, since the first episode? We haven't really seen her sort of backing up her boss. Where was she for this? That is a perfect moment for her to show her strength, her resilience, her abilities, and why Boba sort of sees her in such high regard, why he has her as his second. For me, that should have been... It should have been her that comes in and does the damage. And we really see why Boba relies on her so much. And then with the chase, we see Boba come in on his jetpack afterwards. Why was he not just doing the chase?
And trying to like land on the ship and trying to get the passengers.
Why did we not see his abilities with his jetpack, blasting away? Because last time,
why is he never using
his jetpack properly?
He's never using it. He never uses it.
He's got PTSD from Han Solo back in years ago.
Exactly.
It's too expensive.
Exactly. But it took me back to the first episode when they surround him, these guards surround him, and they just block with your arm, and your left leg block with your left arm, and like, come on, you got this ability, all these abilities and all these devices that we saw in that Mando episode. Use them. You've shown us you have them. Use them here. So it's for everything they're doing and creating, and with this eye for obviously what's going to come later. They're taking away from the immediacy for me. Like I said, with the whole Black Chrysanthemum thing, don't send him away. The Hutts don't want him. They've told you, pretty much like in Gladiator. This is when the old guy says to Russell Crowe in Gladiator, they left you for dead. Fight for me. Fucking hell, Boba should have done that. He should have gone, the Hutts have left you for dead. You kicked my ass, mate. Join me, and I'll treat you right. You can be anything you want. You don't have to listen to them. You don't have to work for anyone. You can work for yourself as long as you give me the respect and pay your little treat every month, like a good gangster movie. It should be this. It shouldn't be running off into the Dune Sea. He's going to die. He's a Wookiee. He doesn't know what's going on.
He's covered in fur. He's going to sweat it to death.
And then for all of that, for all this banter and this back and forth between the Hutts, Black Chrysanthemum, you've got Danny Trejo just sat on a speeder with a big rancor going, I don't know what these guys are on about. Let them have their bit, and I'm sure they'll come over to us in a second. I don't know. It's just a bit weird. Doesn't it? My opinion has gone down a little bit more from all our discussions, but I agree with like everything that Ben's saying. Like, trying to enjoy it, because there are bits that I do enjoy. I really enjoyed the second episode. I enjoyed the train because I'm a big fan of these classic movies. Like I said, Lawrence of Arabia, it just brings me back to that. The homages are spectacular when they're paid in the right way. But the homage in this episode from Mr. Rodriguez was just getting Danny Trejo in, and it didn't work. It didn't give me that sort of like, it was like he dropped the ball. Like's been said, he dropped the ball. No tension in it, no real, true, believable character developments. And the most important moment, the moment when we're supposed to go, oh Christ, it's all going to shit. They gave it us in the first 5 minutes. And then we've moved on. And we're being treated to, as Dan said, the Power Rangers on them Power Ranger cycles. When are they going to join together and create the Super Megazord? Maybe that'll happen in episode 6. I'm not sure.
We'll find out.
There'll be the Rancor and the Megazord battling out.
And Boba Fett will be the jetpack. He'll just clip onto the back of him like this, and then they'll finally be able to use it.
And this setup, we haven't even talked about it, but I can't remember what they're called, but the fish people, not the man calamari. Say again.
The pikes.
The pikes, that's it. They've set up the pikes. Well, we haven't talked about it, have we? So it clearly hasn't really impacted anything. There's no excitement there. Oh, the pikes are coming. They're all getting off a ship. Well, really? That's not interesting. I wanted the gang warfare on this planet from the 3 locations that you've mentioned. I don't want this. I don't want intergalactic warfare. We've had that. I want this grounded, gangster level stuff, because you said it yourself. You want to be in charge of the criminal underworld, and you want to do it respectfully, and you want to get the Trandosians and all these people to follow your bidding. You killed Bib Fortuna in cold blood. Where has that gone?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you literally murdered him. As you say, in cold blood, he was
Didn't
completely
say anything to
unarmed.
him.
I think he even like Beard Fortuna is like a really weak character. Like he is a beta.
Yeah,
So it's like
he'd
Boba Fett could have gone up
bent
to him.
over. He'd have bent over immediately and
Yeah.
gone, "Oh, you."
Yeah, and you could go, Bib, I'll use you because you've got all these connections. I'll use you, and then what would have been cool is in the second episode or something. Then he kills him to be like, right, you know,
Feed him to the Rancor.
You're a worm. Yeah, exactly. But instead they're like, all right, I'll kill you immediately, even though you probably didn't deserve it necessarily. And yet all these people who either deserve it, I'm not going to. So it's once again this is inconsistency, which is kind of throwing us off. I think all of us are like, even if we wanted this badass Boba Fett, we're not getting it. Okay, well, we're going to get this other Boba Fett as long as we get it. Oh, no, you're going to get it in drips and drabs and a little bit here, but not quite. And this bit's... Dan, let's hear your thoughts on the final thing, and then we'll start to wrap up.
So I think what Ben was saying about the Disneyfying and the larger universe and the connections and stuff, like Jon Favreau was at the shit end of that when they made Iron Man 2. Marvel was like, let's shove in as much fucking references to the Avengers and everything that's coming up, and it fucked him off. It fucked off Robert Downey Jr. They fell out for a decent amount of years. He didn't do anything Marvel related for a while. He came back as Happy Hogan with, his mate Shane Black in Iron Man 3. And that was like, well, we'll see what happens. But they give him a bit more of a meteor role. And obviously he's had more meteor roles within that, but he's not in that creative vein. But here he is. So the idea that he's force feeding a lot of kind of stuff where it's like, it's this character and there's this and this is going to happen, and it's going to connect, like you said, with all these different shows that are coming on and Thrawn and everything. I'm just like, it doesn't really work for me. I think with New Backer, they've basically recreated Return of the Jedi, where, Boba Fett went down a hole, New Backer went down a hole. They've proved him to be basically useless. Set him up, very dangerous. Don't mess with him. He's easy. These shitty punks can beat him and throw him down a hole. Nothing. Useless. I think again, Andy was right. Why are we watching a chase scene, a very slow chase scene with two several characters we don't know and or care about? There is no danger. There's no stakes. What is the point? Why is Fennec not doing it? Why is Boba not doing it? Like in Mando, he wears that helmet a lot. He never takes it off. You know what? If Tamora Morrison can't physically do it or something, I know he's an older guy. He's amazing and very talented and can do stuff. But if he can't physically do it, or if there's a problem with that, you just put the another guy in the helmet. It's not
there
hard.
were 2 or 3 different stuntmen for.
There you go.
I saw that.
Pascal, all of them with different skills. One of them was a gunslinger, like a professional, stunt gunslinger. The other ones were all, hand-to-hand combat.
Get them doing it.
They must be using them, surely.
You can CGI everything. You can CGI stuff. As long as you do it well, it's fine. But again, it's just they're setting up this war, and I'm like, is it really a war? Like, I'd like to see multiple different groups of gangs going to war, not just like 2. It doesn't really. Again, it's just throwing stuff away. The only stuff I really liked was the Rancor stuff and Machete, training the Rancor. I love Machete. And the bit where he's like, they can be very loving, and I'm like, you sound a bit like you're a bit too familiar with a Rancor there, Machete. I was like, they can be very loving. It's just the way he delivered that line.
He was snuggling me on the way here. It was very nice.
But that also harkened back to the trainer of the original Rancor in Return of the Jedi, where he's crying over.
Malakili's his name. One of my favorite scenes. I love Return of the Jedi. I think it's actually now my favorite original trilogy film. Every time I do a big Star Wars rewatch, I change the order of what my favorites are. But literally, when he cries when the Rancor dies and he's being consoled by this other thug, it kills me every time. It cracks me up. It's so funny because it's just this, nothing against people who are overweight, but it's this big tubby guy who's covered in grease and sweat, wearing basically nothing, crying about this giant, drooling, very ferocious looking monster.
He looks like a mini Rancor, basically.
Yeah, that's the beauty of Star Wars, though. We've always been made to fall in love with small characters that don't have anything. Mm-hmm. In this episode, we've had all these characters come through. Don't love them. Don't care about them.
Don't care. And
that's really upsetting to me because I love all these random weird characters. I'm a huge Boba Fett fan, but I'm a fan of the mystery, and I'm worried that the mystery is being undone. It's being opened up too much. I didn't have any sort of thoughts or feelings going into the Boba Fett show because I knew that mystery was going to be taken away. I'm reading, the current bounty hunter comics that are out now, and he's still wearing his helmet. He doesn't take his helmet off.
Yeah. And
dare I say, I wish he'd keep it on a bit more. I don't know.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. We'll start to wrap up it. I'll go with Chris first because I know that Chris is on a slightly tighter time limit than the rest of us.
Oh, he is, isn't he?
So, Chris, if you just want to say to us, what do you want? Because we're near the halfway point. I'm really hoping that I'm hoping that when I have this next discussion next week, episode 4, everyone's going to go, blew me out the water. The rest of the episode's been a build up from here. 100 miles an hour. I think that's what we're all we're hoping, because if the next episode's crap, it's going to mean that the series is halfway through and people still aren't quite hooked. So Chris, what do you want from the next few episodes of Boba Fett?
Cool. And I will say, Dan put me onto something that has traumatized me about the Mandalorian. Why the hell he took his mask off when he went into the base and didn't take it off at the end when Grogu went ridiculous. I said it when we covered it, didn't we, Mike? I think we covered it.
He did eventually take it off, but he was very hesitant to take it off. And I'm just like, you took it off in front of Bill Burr and loads of
exactly.
Which actually, that bit doesn't make sense, because I was like, I thought Bill Burr was going to be the one to activate the terminal because he's in the database. He's the one. Why would Mando? Why would a person? It's like, oh, you need to scan someone's face. Okay, here's a face that's never been scanned before. Okay, here's all the Imperial records. Don't worry, bud. It's like, isn't the point of an ID card? Isn't? But yeah, sorry, Chris.
Sorry, no, you're right, because the impact, and I agree with what Andy was saying, that it's the impact of the mask when the helmet and stuff. He's like, keep it on. Look, Sora Wilson wore one of the worst wigs and facial things ever in Aquaman. Let's be honest, it was the worst de-aging I've ever seen. So I'm not bothered if he's going to wear a mask or anything, But it for me, I want action. I don't want him just keep walking around like he's a doorman at a club or something and he's got a chip on his shoulder. I agree with the comments about Fennec doing absolutely fuck all, except to eating a free all-inclusive fucking buffet every day, beat up, perfect makeup on. It's absolutely nonsense. She was a badass in The Mandalorian. The character, I was invested in. I love the build-up, the trailer of her sat on the throne with him. She's got the drink there and everything. I thought, oh, this is going to be great. She's going to be the assassin. She's going to do all his bidding, and she's done nothing. And that isn't a slant on her. It's on both of them. He's all of a sudden. I mean, when that guy said, "With all due respect, no one respects you." Well, he's done nothing but gone into a palace and sat there and ate food.
I thought he was right. I went, yeah,
exactly. That's not what I'm hearing. What, inside the palace where you've got some robot coming in going, they're not booked in, I can't see him. It's nonsense. It's like, come on, give us some context to this. So at least let me believe that people are running rampage in this little town and stuff. So no, I want to come back and be completely wrong and be Chris. You are being a bellend. You are absolutely jumping in as usual, 2-footed, not thinking about the longer game, and then come from there, because I'm sure my very good friend, Mr. Dave Horrocks, would absolutely throw me under the bus and say, you should have kept your mouth shut. And he's probably right. So I want to believe that this is just a WandaVision type slow build up. And there has been some good action. The only thing I've struggled with, it's a bit like, and I love the John Wick films, but when I went to see John Wick 3, I really struggled with the choreography with Keanu Reeves. And this is terrible because I know a lot of people love it more than I love the first one so much. But because he's getting older, I feel like you can see the choreography more in the moves and what they're doing and that. Don't get me wrong, it's still a great movie. And he gets saved by Morpheus as well at the end, which is ridiculous. Matrix crossover, but there you go. But it is one of them things. And I feel with Tamara Morrison, because he's older, when he's doing stuff, he's dead stiff. He's like, it's like, hang on, I need to be in this spot. And I think that's where Fennec should come in. The young, agile assassin. She does all his bidding. And then, like you said, Mike, then we might get an absolute rage scene where almost, I don't know, Kylo Ren type levels of, we know we see that off camera, but he absolutely takes every single person out. And like Dan was saying, you see the shots like he would have saw like the settlement getting killed off, but you see something to enforce that fear, because basically all he's done is blagged his way into Jabba's palace. He's killed that guy who I did have as a figure, and I used to bend his weird tusk things as a kid. Yeah, and I had him, and he always got levered as well by Luke. And always, it was just terrible. I think he had a blue suit on, if I remember correctly, when I was a kid. So these go back to like the mid '80s. But yeah, I just want more, and I feel I love the concept of this episode's 37 minutes, this episode's 50 minutes. It's as long as we want to make it, but make me want to invest in it.
Sorry, Chris. Is everyone else hear that? Sorry for a sec. That weird noise. I didn't mean to cut you off there, Chris.
No.
It might be you,
It's your mic, Chris.
Yeah, it sounds like a wire's come loose. Sorry, I hate cutting people off, but I thought it was me for a second. I saw you guys looking a bit confused. Now we can't hear anything.
Now we can't hear you at all.
I think Disney cancelled
Is that
him.
better?
Yeah, there we go.
Cancel, mate.
There we go. He's back.
We got
He's back.
you,
Sorry.
Chris. Sorry, but continue, Chris. Sorry.
No, it is me. That apologies, guys, because Dave keeps telling me after so long, so much keeps going on with this wire and taking itself out. So apologies. No, I just want more, and I know we've all had some great discussions, and I love the fact that you guys are so into it. You know everything about the Star Wars that I don't. I'm just casual. It's like the comics emotion stuff that we do. I am literally just a superhero film fan. I know fuck all about comics, and to get me to read a comic takes like literally you've got to put a gun to my head sort of thing to do it. So I'm just a gamer. I'm a massive gamer. I love gaming. That's all I do 24/7. And I love watching movies. So when I speak to you guys, I've got complete respect because your love for Star Wars, things like that is like my love for gaming. That's my thing. So when I come in, I don't mean to be I try not to be obnoxious. I just throw in as I see it. But
no, we like your opinion though, because that's what I like about having you here. Because the rest of us are basically super fans, and it's one of the reasons I like hearing Megan's opinions on a lot of Star Wars stuff. Because where I read everything, and she's just like, I've seen the series and the movies a few times, and that's it. It's always interesting because you are actually. The show is more aimed at people like you than the rest of us.
Yes.
There's little hints
Yes.
like, oh, Black Chrysanthemum, oh, this or that. But generally, it's like the main audience of people who've seen all the films, and some of them have seen the series. They're not expecting everyone to have seen and read all the other stuff. So I like hearing your perspective from that, and you never need to apologize for it.
No, and you're right. Yeah, you're right. Because what blew my mind, if you go back to comics, is when Dave said there was more than one Robin. And there was one more Batman. I grew up with Dick Grayson, Adam West, Burt Ward. I don't need to know that nonsense. I don't need to know. And I watched Titans and everything. I don't need to know that there's been other people play Superman and Batman and all Spider-Man. I love Miles Morales. I love the game, as you know, Mike. Absolutely one of my favorite game series ever on the PlayStation. But I'm like, I don't need to know this. There is only one Spider-Man, and he is Peter Parker. So when that's what I love about that, it expands my knowledge, even if I don't want to believe it. But that you're right, it tailors to somebody who's just sat in front of a TV and watched these characters. So no, it's been a pleasure, guys. It's been such lovely to meet you all as well. I'm not going anywhere yet, but I want to hear what everyone says. But I really, really enjoyed it tonight. I
know that you will have to jump off at some point. So if we continue to natter on against that point, you can just say bye. We'll bid you adieu. Right. So if we go, I'm interested now. Sorry. We'll all talk about the last things, which will be just what we want from the show going forward. Obviously, Chris has already eloquently put what he wanted. I want to go to Andy first because I recall in the first episode, Andy, you said something about kind of what you're hoping for was something like The Sopranos, and now you've had to taper your views. I'm interested in what your views are now of what you want the show. Is it still the same, or is it taken down a couple of pegs?
Saying take it down a couple of pegs, I think brings it sort of like a negative sort of way of looking at it. I am sort of like going along the lines of what Ben said before, of like saying, all right, come to me. Let's see where this goes from here. And I think the ideal world for me, because I was thinking about this cancelled Boba Fett video game that was a few years ago. I think it was
1313 was that?
Yeah, 1313. I think in my mind I thought, maybe they're going to do something along that line. Maybe they're going to go really into the underworld and get into the real grittiness of it. Like I said in the first discussion, like there's other bounty hunters, other criminal gangs, and how he's got to work his way through them. But like we've said, it's Disney-fied. They're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna go too in depth with any of that, are they? So I think going forward, and I've done this quite a lot with films and TV shows over the last couple of years. I'm just letting them come to me, and I'm going to do that with this as well. I'm not going to sort of say I hope this happens. I've got theories, like I said, about with the the youngling and the female warrior, Black Chrysanthemum coming back. Got theories. There's a theory in my head that but I've seen a couple of things being knocked around on Twitter about certain characters coming back. I really hope that isn't the case. I don't know whether anybody else has seen that, like rumors of a deep fake Han Solo or something like that.
We in the last episode there was, I think Scott did mention something like that, and I think we all
Really?
in that conversation we all kind of unanimously went, I really hope not. I want it to be plot first. If it works in the plot, Black Chrysanthemum works because they need a big, strong character to come in.
It's a fresh character.
Yeah,
and it's a fresh character.
Yeah, exactly. And us nerds who love comics, like, oh my god, Black Chrysanthemum's on screen, and everyone else is like, oh cool, there's a giant, scary black Wookiee. That's cool.
Yeah,
that works. Not just, oh man, we need to get another big character. Let's just pop Luke Skywalker. Let's pop Han. It's like, no, just plot first. Yeah,
and like I said to you in our first discussion, if they do like cameos of like Bosk comes in or Forlom or Dan's favorite, which is
Dengar.
Dengar.
The man with a nap.
Dengar for some reason.
Because he's got a nappy on his head. That's his design. That's literally it. That's all he's got going for him.
For me, if they do have like things like cameos coming forward, they have to be right. It has to feel organic. And for that reason, I'm not expecting and I'm not anticipating, and I don't really want cameos. We had that big cameo with Luke Skywalker. Yeah, brilliant in some cases. It took a little bit away from me for what was the true moment, which was Grogu leaving Mando. That's just my opinion on the Luke Skywalker thing, because I thought, like, that's more important. It's Grogu leaving, except the internet's gone mad about Luke Skywalker, and rightly so. Fucking brilliant. The parallels between that and Vader's attack on that ship in Rogue One, brilliant. Shot pretty much exactly the same initially with him coming out of the lift, brilliant. I just don't want cameos in this. I don't want it to become a cameo show. That is my only want going forward. I want to focus. I hope they focus on the story.
Yeah,
that's my only thing. I'm prepared to sit there and go, let's see what happens this week. Let's see what happens next week. Let's see what happens in series 2 if it goes that far. Don't want it to be the very last episode to be riddled with cameos or Han Solo comes in to save the day.
Yeah, I'll cheapen it. It would. So if we go, we'll go to Dan and then we'll finish off with Ben. So Dan, what are your sort of thoughts on what you want going forward?
I can't really make any more predictions because I really don't know where they're going to take it. I imagine Jennifer Beals' character is going to come back in some form. I think you don't cast Jennifer Beals without actually using her in some form. Yeah, because she is really good. If you've ever seen Devil in a Blue Dress with Denzel Washington, it's an amazing little noir story. Check that film out if you haven't. But yeah, I just everything that Andy's basically just said, like. Don't litter it with cameos. Don't litter it with this, like, tell a good story, tell a decent story, tell a Boba Fett story. Just make it make sense. Like for me, it's got to go up from this episode because this was really. I don't like to use the word trash, but it was close to how I would describe. It was that bad for me, where I was just like, what is any of this? Like this. What is this? I couldn't pin down anything. I didn't know what, like, again, just all of it was just, I thought it was a complete mess. I did watch Venom Let There Be Carnage last night, so that might have fed into my negativity today.
We're gonna have to talk about that. I want to come on your show and talk about Carnage a lot because I'm just getting into absolute Carnage, and I've watched the both Venom and Let There Be Carnage, so I'm interested.
Yeah, I'm sure.
This is a teaser. Hey, we're doing a Book of Boba Fett teaser at the end of Mando. We're doing the Spider-Dan Mike.
Yeah, we're going to do the
in our Boba Fett conversation.
Yeah, we've got it. It's coming. It's coming. Yeah. It's on the cards. But yeah, I don't know where it's going to go, but it's got to go up from here because if it doesn't, I'm if I wasn't necessarily going to do all of them for this, I might not necessarily do it if it's worse than this episode. It's really got to come up for me.
Episodes 4 and 5 are that bad, you can just message me and say, please, I don't want to be in episode 6 or 7 because I'm just checking out.
I'm like, I've got to get out when the getting's good. I hope Timothy Oliphant turns up in some form as well.
I would actually look at
That is the only thing I'd like to see, really, like in some form, because I think that would be an interesting interaction. But that's the only cameo I would really want to see from any of the characters. It's not great for me. Again, I know Chris likes to talk, say everything's bollocks, and this one was absolute bollocks for me. Like, it was complete and utter bollocks. I know that's kind of his catchphrase. It's not cosmic bollocks, not quite cosmic bollocks.
No, not the Superheroes for Dummies one. But
no.
No.
But it's still a genuine high level of bantha bollocks for me. So not good in any state. But yeah, I don't know. It's a complete mess. I just hope they tidy up the mess. That's all.
Nice. Well, Ben, I know that you generally don't like to predict things and throw those expectations about. So just sort of your final thoughts on this episode, and then we'll get everyone to do their call signs and we'll sign this off. So Ben, finish us off with your
from
thoughts.
my angle, this episode did not represent the worst of Star Wars in any way. I was like, whatever. I had my fun with it, right? And I think that a lot of fans might possibly feel disappointed if they're getting their hopes up for this show to get any better, actually. I think that's where it's at. That's where it's going to go. Look, I think Mike and I have spoken on my podcast that even great cinematic franchises like X-Men, which I think is probably the best comic to film adaptations, except for maybe one or two movies, continuously for 20 years, they have entertained us with like heavy hitters. And even for that franchise, it took them nearly 20 years to produce something as special as Logan, which to me rises above comic book cinema. This is art, and to expect that from Star Wars, I think it's unrealistic. And for somebody like me, quite honestly, guys, again, I don't want to drop on anybody who's a fan of Boba Fett. I never grew up with him as a fan. He was a nobody who, Han Solo just like disposes into the Star. Like he was a non-character that started to finally emerge for me personally when I started reading the New Jedi Order series. That's where he was contextualized. That's where he was given a prominent, proper role with mature treatment and had a lot more involved with Han Solo, with everything else that made me care for this character. As far as the show is concerned, I just don't care. I don't care enough to be disappointed by it. I think this show, this episode in particular, should put the Star Wars showrunners, in close contact with fan voices out there, especially on YouTube, and say like, okay, how do we move forward from there? Because I would feel personally disappointed if the Bad Batch show season 2, which already for me has set up such high expectation, would digress into something like this. And I would see that Star Wars would completely go ballistic if the Kenobi show is of the same production value and
That's
level.
a worry.
It cannot be this. It honestly can. This, I'm like, okay, it's just a trivial character, Boba Fett. It's old visuals, just like fun bells and whistles. That's enough for me to have my entertainment. If Kenobi show is here on the same level, guys, take notice now. It's like
Meltdown. Absolute meltdown.
Yeah, I think it's good that Star Wars has passed hands and will outlive George Lucas and all of us, actually, and it's going through this experimental phase. And I'm happy that Disney's trying things out with young, unknown directors and script writers and all these talents. They're putting them together to rediscover that formula, to find that excitement again. That's why I'm not being too critical and say I'm very forgiving. Okay, this didn't end up the way I wanted it to be. This is not quite there. It's not mature enough. It's too Disney-fied. I'm fine with that. But please, I think 6 years is enough to kind of like test your demographic, test the fandom, and see where things need to go. Mm-hmm. You can now introduce a Legends material via kind of like non-canon Visions show that doesn't necessarily have to tie into this larger Marvel universe, because we all see how that turns out. Things start feeling like they're off the conveyor belt. Start paying attention. Use this moment of the Book of Boba Fett. Analyze each episode, how fans received it, and say like, okay, we need to regroup. We need to have like a focus group, and we need to do better by Kenobi. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm at. I think it's just the Book of Boba Fett represents this experimental phase where I am, being the optimist and being a forgiven fan that I am, I'm willing to let slide if they learn from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a very good way of putting it. I agree completely. Like Book of Boba Fett, for my class, I would be very quick with my final thoughts and we'll wrap up. Is I'm still enjoying it. I enjoyed the last episode. I just think it's flawed, and I know it is what kind of Ben was saying, which is it's the expectation. But the problem is it's less so like I've got high hopes. It's more so, okay, I've seen, I love the prequels. Me and Ben have had several conversations about it, but they are heavily, heavily flawed films, okay? The original trilogy is near enough perfect for a sci-fi trilogy. The sequels are quite flawed, not in the same way as prequels, but they're still flawed in different ways. So I'm just like, as Ben said, okay, Disney, they've got this new content, they're trying to figure out what to do with it here, there, and ever. I am being forgiving. I am being this, but it's like, you've only got so many chances, okay? If they screw up Book of Boba Fett, I'll be like, okay, I was never invested in Book of Boba Fett, in Boba Fett itself. I grew up with Jango Fett existing, so already for me, he was more prominent in Star Wars than Boba Fett ever was. So with that in mind, I'm like, yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's not as good as it could be. It's not what I feel like it could be. And I think that's the more disappointing thing, is that because Mando, obviously, not trying to compare it, but Mando had, no expectations and did so well. And now Boba Fett's like, oh, maybe this will be as good as Mando. And so far it's like, no, this is almost like, I feel like if they released Book of Boba Fett first, it'd have been like, okay, this is pretty good live action Star Wars. They could do a bit better, but we'll see. And then Mando would have, knocked it out of the park in a sense. But yeah, I'm in agreement. If for Book of Boba Fett, if it doesn't get much better, I'll be disappointed, but I'll just not watch the show again. I'm not really that fussed. If they do this with Kenobi or the Ahsoka show, I will be absolutely livid. And, I'm a lifelong Star Wars fan, but that is the kind of thing which will be like, do I really like Star Wars as much as I think I do? Will I have to rethink the tattoos? That's why I haven't really tattoos.
Already on Kenobi.
Well, none of my Star Wars tattoos yet. I've got like patches. I've got the Darth Vader there, the fight on Mustafar from Revenge of the Sith, and then I've got Starkiller from The Force Unleashed. They are untainted stuff from my childhood, and I want some stuff from Rebels, but I'm like, do I want Mandalorian stuff? Do I want this? Do I want that? And I'm like, I don't want to get an Ahsoka tattoo, because if the Ahsoka show sucks, I don't want to get a Mando tattoo, because if Mandalorian Series 3 falls through, all these things, I'm like, I can't finish my tattoos, because I'm worried, and this kind of show is making me think, are my worries justified? So, yeah, I really loved you guys, coming in here and talking about all our varied opinions on this, although on this episode, I think we're all fairly aligned, but obviously we all come from styles in different ways, and we've all consumed it in different ways, and it's amazing to have you guys here and talk so long about these things. So I really appreciate each and every one of you coming on the Comics in Motion show, or my YouTube channel, depending on where people are watching. So, Chris, do you want to start us off? If you want to say where people can find you, and say your goodbyes, and then the rest of us will do it as well.
Been a bit of a fraud, actually, because Comics in Motion, you're doing on our feed, Mike.
Yeah, so I know.
Double whammy, but
I'm pushing you out.
You're nothing.
I'm pushing you out of the way. Like, get out, Chris. I'm taking your mantle.
In fact, I'm actually doing a Boba Fett, because I'm getting everyone else to do all the work, and I'm just sat here on my throne eating food and stuff. So I don't know whether Dave's Fennec, but anyway, we'll talk about that later. But anyway, thank you guys. Honestly, it's been a pleasure to meet you. It's been lovely. And Mike, I'm happy to come on again and talk about this at some point if you want us on, because I want to eat humble pie by the end of this series, definitely. So Comics in Motion P on Twitter, Comics in Motion podcast, all the feeds are on. Mike's amazing show is on there. And then we do the VHS Strikes Back podcast. And also, if you're really into reality TV, our other podcast is Chris and Dave's Reality Cast. So, we don't know how the stars align, but for some ridiculous reason, that is our most successful show. It's not our most enjoyable, it's our most successful, because people just love watching TV shit like I do. So that's my baby, other than gaming, unfortunately, guys. So sorry. But that's me in a nutshell. So thank you so much for indulging me, Mike.
It's all good. And also, you guys went to the radio to talk. Like, you were so popular, Chris and Dave's Reality Cast. You've been on BBC talking about your show. You were the Love Island.
I was on last night.
You are still going. So they're literally being interviewed by people on BBC. These are the Love Island specialists, Chris and Dave.
The blaggers.
Just
blaggers.
And I want to say, if anyone who's listening here and you haven't checked out the VHS Strikes Back, I mean, the Reality Cast may not be to everyone who likes Boba Fett's tastes and things, but VHS Strikes Back, if anyone hasn't checked out that podcast, it is so much fun. It's just you guys tackling really old films from the VHS era. Some of them are absolute bangers, classic movies, and some of them are horrendous. You and Dave just occasionally try and one-up each other on the worst, most cheesy kung fu and action movies you can find. So it's so much fun listening to that.
Sorry to cut across your back. We've actually got coming up, and I picked this on purpose. Next week's episode, we've just done Goldfinger, which came out yesterday. So everyone's like, Goldfinger, and a classic Sean Connery. And I went online and looked for the worst martial arts movies ever. I've not even seen it. And it came up with the 10 worst American martial arts movies. And it's not even, he doesn't do any martial arts. It's Lou Ferrigno in a film called Cage from 1989.
Oh my
and
Lord.
It is absolutely glorious because it's a Comics in Motion link because Red Brown's in it, who played Captain America in the late 70s. And he got the Incredible Hulk. And it's ridiculous. This whole story. He's a Vietnam vet who gets shot and ends up being brain damaged, and it's unbelievable. But it's also got the VHS multiverse. So we're talking about multiverse because we have No Retreat, No Surrender references all over the place. We've got Die Hard references in there with all sorts of stuff. So that's going out next Wednesday, and that is one of the worst. Best movies I've ever seen, and I thought Dave would be pissed off, and he loves it. So
I can't wait to listen to that. It's always a joy, especially when there's those films which there's no hope I've ever seen, so I can just listen to it and go, I don't need to have watched this film beforehand because you guys are going to entertain me greatly. So I really recommend anyone listening. Obviously, everyone needs to check out all of these guys' lovely shows, but VHS Strikes Back, definitely check that out. So then, Ben, do you want to pitch yourself, tell people where they can find you, and then move on?
First of all, Mike, thanks for having me once again. Gentlemen, Chris, Daniel, Andrew, it's just so fun to chat with you guys, share opinions. I feel like I'm in a highly elevated society because, as I mentioned to Mike, everything sounds better with British accent, I feel like, it's fascinating. Me as a kid who grew up in the former Soviet Union and then came to live in New York, and like with these completely two polar opposite worldviews, and then I get to hear Europeans talk about one thing that connects us all, Star Wars, and how we all come at it with different angles. That what stimulated me to create my YouTube channel, Star Wars Timeline. I honestly wanted just to hear people talk positively about Star Wars again, or passionately, and without insult to one another, and say like, this really kind of like makes me angry. I really enjoyed this, but focused on what makes Star Wars interesting and great to us all. And the same with the Facebook group, Star Wars Timeline. Just created. I thought it would be just a dumpster for my videos that nobody would watch. And slowly it started snowballing. People started coming in. It's like, hey, we have a group here where they're moderating it, where we're not shutting you up. We're not trying to be Mark Zuckerberg of Star Wars, like not allow people to say what they want to say, but say it in a way that is constructive. I love hearing Andrew say what he likes and dislikes about the Book of Boba Fett, because we're all passionate. We all want Star Wars to be better. We all want to criticize it, and for Disney and the showrunners to elevate it to a point where it can finally start calling it high art again. That was the whole idea for me. And I think it's so critical to any fandom, be it Star Wars or Marvel or Disney, for adults like us to come in and not just eat everything that is thrown at us via screen, but being able to put a critical eye on it, point a finger and say like, hey, you need to do better. If I'm paying for Disney Plus, if I'm buying physical media, some of us still enjoy collecting those Blu-rays. If I'm being invested, I have tons of books. This is just a mild collection I have behind me. I have all the runs of Star Wars Legends books, most of which I've read. If I'm investing money like all of this, it's a little bit more than just entertainment for us. This is our lifestyle, and we hope they can aspire to be something great again. I'm still hopeful that we'll see a movie as great as The Return of the Jedi, Mike. Like you said, it's your favorite one. Maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years from now, the right director, the right filmmaker comes about, and the Disney has realigned its priorities, and the right environment will set up this movie for all of us to be just completely blown away, be speechless, and say, I have no comments here. I've been literally blown away.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Ben. I'll quickly say to listeners as well, Ben also, he's had me on the show like 4 times, which is wonderful. And we've spoken about all the Star Wars trilogies and specifically broke down the sequel trilogies as well. But he's also spoken to other people involved with Star Wars, including there's a painter and things. You recently spoke to a guy called Fluke Skywalker who does charity work dressed as Luke Skywalker for things. So it's not just Star Wars specific content. Ben also talks to a wide variety of people who are inspired by Star Wars.
Mike, if you've seen one of the latest one of the highest privileges was to interview Greg Hildebrandt, one of the artists, the twins who painted with the original Star Wars painting. And guys, I encourage you. It was a complete honor just to talk to him, a man with 60 plus year of experience of being like an American legend in illustration. It was just like, oh my God, he came over to chat with me, with Ben from Russia. Like, what the heck? It was just amazing. And to me, like, it's a humbling experience when you have people willing to talk to you for their life experience, whether they're famous or not. It shows you just how small you are, a tiny speck of dust in this larger Star Wars community.
Amazing. So yeah,
Brilliant.
everyone needs to check out Ben's stuff. It's amazing. It's a lot of fun. And you'll see me on there if you need to hear more of my voice. So linking from YouTube to YouTube, Andy, tell people about your show.
Oh, mine's just a rambling mess of fury and rage. My recent video was a complete off-the-cuff challenge by the missus, who told me to buy a £1.49 microwavable burger from a shop called Aldi over here. And I said, oh, I'll do a review on it then. She went, you won't. And I went, I will. And I did. And it's utterly awful. So most of the time,
one of my favorites.
Oh, you say that all the time. You just like me suffering, I think.
I do.
But most of the time, I center around movies. I'm not as prolific a reviewer as I'd like to be. I kind of make promises and don't come out with them. But when there's a film that really, really gets me, one way or the other, I'm not angry for the sake of being angry. When the film gets me one way or the other, I'm very, very vocal about it. I like talking about it. I like these kind of discussions. That's why I started YouTube up. It was at the behest of Dan, who said, look, with all these discussions we have, why are you not sharing these thoughts out, reaching out to other people and, doing this kind of stuff. For me, I think is the pinnacle of that. I don't care how many subscribers I get. The more the merrier, the more people that listen and watch, and the more discussions I have, the better. But this is it for me. This is what I always wanted to be in, to be able to have these kind of discussions with people, and share opinions and share hopes and dreams about where, not just where Star Wars is going, but where movies go, where Marvel movies go, cinematic classics, people discovering films that I used to watch, and then people showing me things that I'd never seen before. This is it for me. So yeah, you can find me at Andy_review on Twitter, and my channel is just quite simply Angry Andy Reviews. Come along and make yourself known.
Yeah,
Googling now.
And I'll include all the listeners. I'll include links to everyone's stuff in the show notes, both their social media and their other things as well. And I will say, Andy's passion, whether he likes a film or not, that's the key reason that you want to tune in to Angry Andy, because it is I love hearing people be passionate. Yeah, whether or not you agree with him, you'll be there. You have a fun ride. So I appreciate
if you don't agree, I honestly reach out. I love talking about it. I want to see where I've gone wrong, and then I'll tell you where you've gone wrong.
Perfect. And finally, but last but not least, Spider Dan, tell everyone about yourself and where they can find you.
Well, I'd like to thank Dave and Chris and yourself for inviting me and Andy. I'm going to speak on Andy's behalf. He can shut up now.
Quiet down, Andy. I'm talking now.
Yeah, it's my turn. I just want to thank you for inviting us to be a part of the Comics in Motion family, because it's just absolutely everything I wanted from this kind of content, and listening to all your shows are great. All the different various podcasts that you managed to put out. I barely managed to put out anything really in the grand scheme of things. I'm like, there's one podcast that's like every 2 weeks or something, and I'm like, I want to do more, but where's the time? But I love the community. I love being part of this creative ensemble, and I think Dave said that we were Comics in Motion adjacent, and I was like, you know what, that's an honor. That's you're
the extended family.
The extended family. It feels great to be welcomed into such a loving bunch and positive people as well. We're all critical and we all have our opinions and stuff, but it's been amazing. So I thank Chris and Mike and everybody, Tony and everybody that's involved, in the Comics in Motion in whatever form that is. So it's been great. You can find me, I don't think I mentioned this last time, at spiderdownandthesecretballs.com. That's BORES. All my links to my social media are in there, and you can find everything you need. Help the podcast, do all this other good stuff. There's my guest spot, so this is on there. This will be on there. I'll add this to the website very soon. And if you're after more Star Wars content, now I wasn't very happy with this episode. It's definitely not the worst Star Wars content, me and Andy have ever watched. We've done the Trilogy of Terrible. We did the Star Wars Holiday Special very recently, and we did the 2 Ewok movies as well. So if you're looking for some really bad Star Wars content, you've got it on my podcast. So I've got a YouTube channel as well, but it's not very few videos up. It's mostly just my Patreon. But yeah, just head over to there and find all the lovely content I have.
Absolutely perfect. I will clarify in the last episode, I did find your website, so I think I did put it in the link, even if you didn't mention it. So no need to worry there. And also, funny thing is I'll just say my stuff, but in linking with the Caravan of Courage and the Ewok movies, Ben's recently been watching the old school Droids cartoons and the Ewok cartoons. He finished the Droid series. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff when we go off air, there's a lot of stuff to talk about and things, but without making this drag on any further, I'll quickly say, I've been the host and somewhat moderator of this conversation. We're going to be doing it for another 4 weeks, right to the end of Book of Boba Fett. You can find me, if you're listening on a podcast app, on the feed of Comics in Motion, Star Wars Comics in Canon, new episode every Saturday. If you've never listened to a Star Wars, if you've never read a Star Wars comic in your life, or if you've read every single one of them, which I'd be surprised if you had, because there's a bloody lot of them, then please check out my show, because I go through the plot details in a way that is bullet points, so you get understanding of the canon, you understand the events that happen in Star Wars, but you still get enjoyment from reading the actual comments, and I talk about all the connections. I do little bits about species and random characters and things, like Black Chrysanthemum, that sort of stuff. I talk about the many connections, so it can be a guide for when you're reading, or it can be instead if you haven't got the time for the content. Or you can check out my other show, Genuine Chit-Chat, where I have honest conversations with interesting people. I've had Chris on a few times. I've had Ben on very recently. He finished off the 2021 with an amazing chat about Russian culture and animation and Dune and Star Wars and Joseph Campbell and special effects, all kinds of great stuff. So, you know, if you're listening on YouTube or watching, really, check out all the playlists, because everything, if you want to hear Star Wars conversations or this or that, lots of things in genres and whatnot. But thank you so much for listening, guys. You can find me at social media at Genuine Chit-Chat on Instagram, Twitter, and on Facebook. And it's just been an absolute delight. It's always so much fun being able to talk to loads of people about their different opinions on Star Wars, and the 4 of you have been absolutely delightful to chat with, and I'm sure we'll be able to have you guys on for at least one more. It may be a switch around the things again, so you might have to say adieu to each other, but we'll have you guys on again, and I'll be talking to each of you individually, as I do anyway. So just thank you guys, really appreciate it, and this is where I'll stop recording. So cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you.
Cheers.